You are listening to Nerd Best Friends, a podcast that covers the nerdy conversations you're already having, or wish you could. It's the nerdiest thing you'll do this week.
Welcome back, nerds. It's another summer fun edition of your Nerd Best Friends podcast. My name's Analese.
I'm Rob.
I'm Dr. Intern Joan.
This is super exciting for me. Rob, I don't know if you're super excited about this, but today's episode is centered around a film that traumatized an entire generation based off of 1 minute and a half scene. Of course, we're talking about The Neverending Story and Dr. Intern Joan's first time watching the film.
I don't know if I am excited because I've been getting a lot of heat about this movie on the group chat. And so I'm a little bit nervous about how this is going to go. Rob, your childhood is trash. Rob, this movie's going to suck. Rob, you're the worst. So I guess we'll see.
Sounds to me like that trauma unresolved is coming forward because the chat was nothing like that. But let's go into it by starting first with how y'all doing?
Summer is summering here in the Pacific Northwest. Good weather, patio's open, sitting out there, enjoying.
You have like an enclosed patio where you can sit and not get eaten alive by bugs?
We have a pop-up that has screen and curtain sliders so we can be enclosed. Yeah.
Nice. How about you, Rob? How's your summer going so far?
At time of recording, we're still wrapping up the end of the school year, and there's a lot. There's a lot going on. May is always busy. I think May is always the busiest month, especially if you're around education or you have kids that are in the education system. People call it Maycember because it's like there's this other time of the year halfway through where everything's busy and there's an event every night and you got to get all these things and organize your stuff. And, like the routine is broken up. So that's where I'm at right now. When is this coming out? Like July? I won't be
actually,
so
I have
and sleepy.
2 things for you. Number one, as of the day of recording, we're in June. So happy Pride Month, everybody.
Not only are we in June, but June 1st, we can wish a happy birthday to D.M. Coons, who was born June 1st, 2025.
Oh, look at that. Look at that nerdism. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing is also this comes out in 10 days. This is where our
We're
summer
quick,
episodes, ironically, are in much like quicker form, which we're allowed to do now because we're not sponsored, but let's just do a shout out to Riverside, who has changed our podcast pretty tremendously and well worth the pro price. Riverside, if you're listening to this endorsement, we'll take some kickback our way, but overall we're able to edit much quicker and get episodes out quicker. So this episode comes out like June 11th in 10 days.
Oh boy, okay. We know so much for our buffer. Lots of bigger podcasts than us use Riverside, but if you are somebody who's like, oh man, I like the Nerd Best Friend podcast. They're just a couple of friends talking about their stuff. I wish I had a podcast. Yeah, skip doing it the hard way. Just pay the money for Riverside.
It is so worth it. And with that, let's get to some nerd mail.
Nerd mail.
So the nerd mail today is pretty simple, and it's actually about today's episode, so it's prevention nerd mail. We put out a question on, prevention, postvention, intervention. It's we're ahead of ourselves. We're like cutting edge podcast right now.
We asked for feedback. We asked for
feedback on Threads on Dr. Intern Jones going to watch Neverending Story the first time. And I'm going to tell you 100% of the responses on Threads was talking about the one scene that I referred to at the start of this episode of traumatizing a generation. And it was just our Threads was filled with memes and GIFs of people crying. And then because that was on my phone and that's what I'm reading, all of a sudden my Instagram, the Nerd Best Friends Instagram was filled with people talking about how traumatizing this one scene was for the entire Gen X population when this film came out. So that's our nerd mail, is just talking about that one scene.
I suppose my husband last night when we were watching it, he said, I almost had to leave the room. It reminded me of childhood. So it's true. It's real.
So before we get started, we're going to talk about the Neverending Story that came out in 1984. It is high fantasy. And what I will tell you is as we are being nerd-stalgic about these things over the course of the last couple of years with this podcast, I realized that a lot more things that I was interested in as a child were high fantasy, but I didn't realize that was the category. Does that land with either of you as well?
No, I always knew I was a big D&D nerd because I was always watching like swords and guys on horses and people with bows and arrows and monsters and stuff. Like I always loved it.
Can't tell you. It was my first time watching this movie, obviously, so I kind of danced around fantasy and I didn't really embrace it until adulthood.
I feel like that was my path too, Joan. But I'm realizing now I'm such a huge fan. Like the Dark Tower game that my parents had is super high fantasy, but it didn't ping to me as that category. I've actually never seen the Labyrinth all the way through.
Well, here we go.
We may have to add another one to our, right? The Dark Crystal, I've seen bits and pieces of, but not all the way through.
Yep.
Yeah. So, Xanadu. These are the things I think of that I've only seen pieces of, but not entire films or have the nostalgic or nerd-stalgic connection to, like I do the Neverending Story. But that does lead me to, before I read the storyline, 1984. D&D came out, Rob? Late 70s, right? 75, 76, 79? Okay.
Yeah, something like that.
And I do think it really hit pop culture in the positive and negative ways, right? We have the Satanic Panic in the 80s, but we also had a ton of movies that were really based in fantasy. Absolutely. And again, this is a connection I didn't make. So I think the golden year in the 80s for films was actually 85. Where we had a whole ton of movies like Back to the Future come out. But 84, listen to these movies that are like within the top of the year. So we have The Karate Kid, The Terminator, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Amadeus, Ghostbusters, Footloose, 16 Candles, Dune, The Neverending Story, Top Secret, A Nightmare on Elm Street, A Police Academy, This is Spinal Tap, A Beverly Hills Cop, Gremlins, and just kind of scrolling here, Romancing the Stone, Revenge of the Nerd, Johnny Dangerously, which is one of my favorite films of all time, Conan the Destroyer, Splash, Children of the Corn, The Last Starfighter. Like, these all came out in 1984. Supergirl.
A ton of good movies that came out in 85.
84.
But
yes. And a lot of them are high fantasy. A lot of
you can
what
make
we
the
just
argument
named.
that a bunch of those are high fantasy.
Yeah.
And a lot of them have kids at the center.
Correct.
I found interesting about that generation, our generation.
So I wanted to point that out. First of all, we have D&D come out, and then we have a Satanic Panic happening, and we have people really diving into high fantasy. And this is not even touching comic books of the time. This is just looking at pop culture and the most popular movies of the time. But that leads us to The Neverending Story. I'm going to read a quick synopsis of this film for those of you who may not be familiar with it. Here's the synopsis. Bastian is a young boy who lives a dreary life being tormented by school bullies. On one such occasion, he escapes into a bookshop where the old proprietor...
Okay, stop. He doesn't live a dreary life. He recently lost his mother to death, and he's struggling with his father to try to figure out how to deal with his problems.
But it doesn't go that deep. It really makes his life...
Okay, all right, I'll let you
look
finish
at the opening scene. The opening scenes with his dad, and he's obviously...
Major Dad from the Fall Guy.
Major Dad from Major Dad.
Major Dad from Major Dad. But wasn't Major Dad Fall Guy before that? I believe Major Dad was the Fall Guy.
Sounds legit without looking it up. I do think they make his life look dreary.
Juxtaposed.
Yes. With how buoyant and happy he is at the end. It does make his life look dreary. He has a math test that he has to escape.
He does have a math test, and he goes to a school with no windows.
We'll talk about the school a little bit, but let me go back to the synopsis. On one such occasion, he escapes into a bookshop where the old proprietor reveals an ancient storybook to him, which he is warned can be dangerous. Shortly after, he borrows the book and begins to read it in the school attic, where he is drawn to the mythical land of Fantasia, which desperately needs a hero to save it from destruction. So that's a quick synopsis of The Neverending Story. And we're going to start today. I mean, we've kind of already started, but because it was Dr. Intern Jones' first time seeing this film, boom, reactions, go.
Hey, look, I was prepared to hate it because Rob said he loved it, and I feel like that's my kind of angle on this podcast in general. I remember a long time ago, Rob said, you love reading, and this boy gets to escape into a world, and it's a metaphor for what happens when you read books. And Rob was right, everyone. So breaking news. I was prepared to hate it, but it quite surprised me in a good way.
I don't care what you do with your life from this point forward, Analese, but if you edit out that sentence where Joan said Rob was right, I will tear Riverside down from the foundation. I'm very glad you enjoyed the movie. I thought you would, and I was thinking of you the whole time with that boy and his love of reading.
Yeah.
What else, Joan? You were surprised how much you liked it, but just some initial...
First, I don't know who Rob said it was the person's birthday at the beginning of this episode. I don't know who that is, but it is also my mom's birthday. She would have been 81 today.
Aw, happy birthday.
So last night I was like, of course, this is a dead mom movie, like on this weekend, of course.
Not even Disney.
Not even Disney, but that's how usually these movies are set up. Someone's mom is gone or something's happening in the 80s with these kids. I love that Major Dad was the dad. I love that he escaped into the bookstore. This sets it up for everything. And did you consider that the bookstore guy reminded me instantly of the guy who gave the dad the gremlins in Gremlin, or gave Gizmo to the dad?
Yep.
Like,
Very tropey.
Place and get the,
Definitely an 80s movie trope.
I enjoyed that. And he's like, oh, he took it. I don't know. I loved him stealing away to go read the book in the attic and having these adventures in the attic of the school. But yeah, I have a lot of individual comments, but I don't know if you all want to jump in with comments on the rewatching portion for you.
I think the opener, like you've been talking about, was also something I noticed a lot during this watch. And it might have been because I was watching it with a more critical eye. I had my notepad out. Like the last time I watched this was probably 8 or more years ago when I showed it to my son and we were watching it. So it'd been a little while. And so I'm looking at it and like right away that scene, just like we were talking about, Maria looks at me and goes like, "Dead Mom, is this a Disney movie?" And I'm like, no, if it was a Disney movie, we wouldn't have had to buy it. All the little things there in the beginning, like that first scene in the kitchen, really sets up this kid's life. You've got Major Dad there and he's very standoffish. The whole thing is quiet, right? There's no background music. The only sound is like the shutting of cupboard doors and stuff because they don't really talk. When they do talk, it's just the classic his dad of like, "You gotta keep your feet on the ground, son," and blah, blah, blah. And, just very disappointing from the dad there. But then like the little things too, like you see him and he's got all the stuff out and he's like struggling to like get peanut butter on the toast, and the dad comes in and like drinks a raw egg and is like, "Have a good day," and like leaves, and he's just sitting there with like this peanut butter and like the saran wrap is out and all this stuff because like his mom used to make his lunch and he's like trying to figure it out and it's all like sucky. Like it is a dreary life
because his life is dreary.
But there's all of these things where it's like we set that up like, okay, this kid's dad he doesn't have the connection with his dad. His mom is gone. He loves reading, but time and again throughout Act 1 of this movie, he keeps running away from everything. He doesn't really talk with his dad. The bullies show up. He runs away. He gets to class. There's a math test. He runs away. The book gets a little more intense. He slams it and runs away. Like he runs away from his problems all the time, which is where we get to the hero's journey setup.
Well, so I am not for bullying kids, bully prevention. But did you see the book bag he had? It was like a business
He's
bag.
carrying a briefcase.
Like he was an old man
What a
going to
nerd.
a job. And I'm like...
Well, it was definitely, he didn't have a backpack, right? He had that like stuff, but it was cool. It had all his patches on it and stuff.
No, that was weird. I was like, no wonder he's in a dumpster.
What bothered me about it was the bullies. Those bullies should have been getting bullied with all their like bright colors and stupid backpacks and dopey faces. I was like, how are these the bullies?
It was the 80s. That was what was popular.
I don't know. I feel like where's like the kids from the Breakfast Club to like beat up these nerds?
They were busy in detention
For
at the
beating
high
up
school. These kids
nerds.
are in the elementary school. Come on now.
Don't open up a multiverse where we have to think about how this will happen.
Yeah, I don't even know what a production company makes this movie, but I didn't recognize like the director. I didn't recognize that it was anything big. Like it's not attached to any, like, it's not a Universal film. It's not a Disney film. It's just.
This is a nerd alert.
Yeah.
This is my new segment that I made up by myself.
Nerd alert.
It's German made. The author of the book was German. And this was, in 1984, the most expensive movie ever made in Germany up to that point. And then it was released to the U.S. So that's why we know nothing about the director and whatnot.
DIJ with the research. I also read that because I was looking for the director's name and read that I think Warner Brothers eventually purchased it once it was popular in order to redistribute it on VHS, which means the Warner Brothers logo should have been at the start of the film that you rented. I rented it on Apple TV Plus or whatever. So that was added to the film around 1989 or 1990 so that it could be redistributed on VHS on a much wider scale.
Gotcha. Well, apparently it's very expensive to pour liquid into other liquid and backlight it to make it kind of look like moving clouds because this movie had so much of that. Clearly it was a new technology at the time.
Right. It reminded me of drugs. Like, I imagine that's what a trip would have been like, just like flying through all the water and the clouds and the light at the beginning, the opening sequence.
I think that a lot with a lot of these scenes. Like, they must have been doing some good drugs in Germany and just making up these costumes in some of these scenes.
Maria was saying that they looked like close-ups of the drinks that she used to get at bars in college. She was like naming them, like, well, that's the blue one, it's the blah 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 blah. Oh, look, that one's red, that's the blah 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 blah. Because when you pour the gross creamer in the alcohol, it makes that, whatever it is. There was a ton of that, and so there were those special effects. But to me, this movie like lives and dies on the puppetry and the costumes of like the wacky characters that are in there, and the like forced perspective of the big giant guy and stuff. That's the thing where I'm like, the practical effects, the makeup and the big puppets, that's where this is all about. Sometimes I talk about movies that I love and I'm like, this is almost a perfect movie. Like, I'll call Ghostbusters an almost perfect movie. I'll call Star Wars an almost perfect movie. This is this is a great movie and I love it, but there's some problems with this movie, especially with some of those special effects. Whenever, like, there's a scene where Falkor comes down and like grabs up Atreyu from the swamps, and it looks like garbage. It just looks bad. Like, you can see the crane come in and him like have to like grab onto like the very static, not moving paw to like get through. That looks so bad. Let's do it again later in Act 3.
I didn't notice that. I noticed that Falkor's body was awful to me. His face was lovable. I liked his voice. It fit with him. Then I look at his body and I'm like, that's supposed to be a dragon body? That's not. They could have done.
It's a salamander body, right? It looks
Yeah,
like a salamander with a
freaked me out.
on it.
Yeah.
Much like when they went to the ivory tower and they were talking about, the Empress is sick. The people with the two faces.
People with the two faces were amazing.
I was like, this is creepy.
It's disturbing.
It's awesome. There's the like huge big headed dudes, and there's like the two-face that share three eyes.
Face people, yes.
And then like the four-face people.
Yes.
It's so cool.
Is that what the Swamp of Sadness does to people there? Because I don't want to live there.
I think they're just representing north, southeast, and west, right? It's the same thing in the characters we meet later or earlier, right before that scene. We meet someone from the east who's got the racing snail and he's very prim and proper, and someone from the south.
Deep Roy, by the way.
The person, or is that the character name?
The person.
Oh, okay.
That's Deep Roy.
Then you get they called him something at the end, but the dude who had the bat for...
Yeah, he's got like a made-up countryman name.
Yeah. I love the snail and the bat. I thought those were my two favorites.
They're hilarious.
That's what I'm always like, never-ending story. There's a rock, there's a snail, there's a bat in the never-ending story.
I mean, the bat definitely, those little animals definitely kept kids entertained early on, right? You have the racing snail. What does a racing snail look like? Oh, that's what a racing snail looks like.
He's adorable.
And the bat falls asleep in the middle of the initial flight. I want to take a step back real quick and just say two things. In my rewatch of this, I probably have not seen the full film sat down from front to back, maybe in decades, maybe. So my memories of it are all out of order to actuality. In my mind, in my memory, the scene in the Swamps of Sadness with Artax is way later in the film.
Right?
Because of its darkness, right?
I noticed that too. Yeah. I was like, damn, they killed this horse quick.
Right off the bat.
Because we got one great scene where they're like, a horse and the boy are best friends, and he wakes him up and he feeds him an apple. And I could have sworn there were like at least two more scenes with that horse of them. Like, there's a lot of them like running through the different vistas and stuff. But as far as like interactions and like falling in love with this horse, it's real quick.
It's in the first third of the movie. Yep, there's still an hour left after that happens.
Yeah, like Artax dying is the end of Act 1, which I was like,
yes.
What?
Yes. So that did you? Yeah, I think everybody did. Now imagine being like
such a good job. I mean, Bugsy is out there just like crying and like, he's no my arms go, and then it does, and the music is going, and then when it fades to black for the last line of the kid going, it's just,
and he's like hugging his head. Yes.
No wonder.
And then they just show the scene of the swamp, and they have it disturbed where it looks like that's where the like, oh my gosh, it's awful. And then poor Bastian sitting in the attic just sobbing like that. It's traumatized a generation, especially. I mean,
it forged us.
But I want to say, rewatching this now as a high school principal, you know what got to me? What kind of school has an attic that's got a wolf on a stick and skeleton bones and candles, flammable things, and broken key that students have access to. This is no.
An elementary school at that.
It's
An
an
elementary school with a gigantic attic that's bigger than the rest of the school.
They
Hell
got,
no. That is what
they have,
at that.
Good point.
you are very familiar with this. They have budget cuts. They had to cut their science department. All the science stuff, the skeletons, the taxidermy, the candles, all of the science stuff had to go up to the attic because the funding got cut. This is a normal thing. It's the science department is up there.
The only thing that makes it more realistic is the fact that when I ended up back at our high school as an assistant principal and had to go up in the attic above the band room because the fire department said we had to clear it out, and found flags and props from 30 years before that. Like,
absolutely.
But at the same time, students didn't have access to, oh, look at this broken box where the key just sits so that anyone can grab it.
They don't know that the kids know that it's there.
Lies.
Maybe it's the room of imagination from Harry Potter. Like, he really needs that key in that space to run away from
He
it.
made it happen in his brain. It doesn't really exist because of the trauma of losing his mom.
Yep.
That's what I saw. I'm
I
like,
don't know about that. I think it's just an attic in a crappy school.
This principal is neglect in his or her duties, and we never even see.
Listen, this is not a school that is running
The school closes.
That school was closed. School got out at 3:15. The lights were out by 3:20.
He was locked in there overnight, and nobody's looking for him. Like, what is happening? This is the era of the you see on like TikTok and Reels all the time. This is the era of channels having to put a screen up at 10 o'clock saying, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? It sure as heck hit 10 p.m. And Bastian's dad was like, oh, I haven't seen my kids since I had coffee this morning.
So if the movie hadn't been made in Germany, that scene definitely would have been there.
Exactly.
There with his after dinner martini, and the TV's like, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? And him like being like, huh, Bastian,
are you here, son?
Are your feet on the ground?
Latchkey kid phenomenon. I know that was me. Yeah, my mom worked, single mom. So I was on my own until she got
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
So that felt
That's just what bothered me on this rewatch now that I have to like run a school or choose to run a school. I don't know. That's what hit me the most. The order of how everything happens. I also thought you met the rock guy a little bit later, the rock biter. I thought you met these guys later, but they are the first things you meet, right? And that surprised me.
I actually thought it was the other way around. Like, I knew those guys come up at the beginning, but I thought in my memory that the nothing came and swallowed them like at that moment.
Right away.
Like, I thought they look like good, strong hands was part of that first scene. But then that wouldn't have made sense because who would he have been talking to? He had to go.
Right. And you wouldn't have had the reference necessarily of the friends that were with him. But I had forgotten that part of the storyline is that the Empress, thank you, that she was ill. And that's why she's not in those initial scenes. That was just gone from my mind.
That's right, because Shaft with a fish thing comes out and tells us, the Empress is sick. She cannot help us. We're boned, everybody. Boned.
And then, surprising to everyone, Atreyu is the warrior they're waiting for and is a child. And they send this child on a very dangerous journey of nothing to the nothing to fight the nothing.
I mean, and it had a Star Wars vibe for me, that too, because they're like, he's our only hope. And that is a Star Wars thing, right, too? So
because Star Wars is also a high fantasy movie. But instead of the Force, he gets a magical medallion called some weird name that protects him and guides him.
The Auron, and it goes on a quest. I mean, they're using D&D terms. I mean, they're regular words, but, you're going to go on a quest, and he goes to different lands, and each of these lands has a name, and within these lands, there's different characters, and he has to see this wise person, and he's got to see that wise person, and then none of them are nice to him, right? Like, it's really not a kid's movie while being a kid's movie of the 80s. It's pretty phenomenal.
It's absolutely a kid's movie. This is the kind of movie kids should be getting.
With adult themes, because those Sphinx statues were definitely busty, and the ivory tower definitely had a female genitalia vibe. But if you look at it, it's true there. I was like, why?
And it's glowing.
Yeah.
It's on a pedestal.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, as it should be, but Germans.
I was going to say, like, I think that's, like, it's real German. Like, now that I know that, I'm like, a lot of this stuff makes a lot more sense now that I know that it was made in Germany.
We gotta love it.
When Atreyu was writing Falkor over the land and the sea and everything else, I instantly thought of California Soarin' at Disney California Adventure.
Yes!
Like, why don't we have a Falkor ride that does this so we can visit the land of the Neverending Story? And that would have been That's exactly, I wanted the smells. I wanted the, swamp of sadness. I just wanted it all in a ride.
I had the same exact thought that if California Dreamin' or whatever it's called had been around at the time, it would have had a Neverending Story themed ride where you're riding Falkor, 100%.
Maybe, because clearly it's tough. Like it's not like a licensed product. Nobody's doing Neverending Story stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's not a property people are making comic books about or selling toys of or doing any of that stuff. It's just kind of lost.
Was there merchandise? Do we know that?
I'm sure
Yes.
there was, because it was a
has.
kid's movie and you could like get that stuff, but not much anymore. I mean, you'll still see deep cuts of things like you'll see the costumes. Like if you look at footage from like comic book conventions and stuff and you've seen that like brown suit with the top hat and you're like, I wonder what that is. It's the snail guy from Neverending Story, right?
I mean, a quick search, there's a ton of stuff. Mostly the medallion, definitely the book, which it is actually a book. So, Joe and I expect this to be on your reading list at some point. And you'd be talking about how much better the book is to the movie. So the book is a big one. I see some Legos. It's Lego ideas. Never mind. People made it into Legos or made it out of Legos. Definitely some figurine sets of the Empress. And there's Atreyu. And it's Atreyu because he's got the bandana or the wrapping on his arm from his injury from the first scene. You've got the racing snail dude, the rock guy, Falkor, and then there's Bastian laying on his stomach with a book. So there were definitely licensed things in the 80s, but not much now, which is, I mean, if California Adventure was around at the time, just like, Captain EO wasn't a real movie. They made that movie for Disney, but I imagine it would have been something about flying with Falkor if there was availability for that technology in 1984. It was popular enough of a movie.
Of those little gnomes, the little angry married couple that lives on the hill. I've got it in my notes. It made me laugh out loud. To the winch!
You know what? And there's a few things that I see, and I never know which came first, which trope came first, if it came from this, but watching those two and be reminded of those two reminds me of The Princess Bride.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep, another trope for sure.
Billy Crystal's character and his wife, as they're also the alchemists or the scientists who help out bring what's his face back to life in The Princess Bride. I will say, while we're talking about this, my favorite spoof or copy of this film with the bully scene and how Bastian gets his revenge at the end by having them go into the dumpster is spoofed in an animated short for Creepshow 2, in which the kid is bullied and ends up getting thrown in a trash can or a dumpster, and he goes home all messy and he's opening up his horror comic book and he sees a little ad for 99 cents. You can buy what are they called? Like a Little Shop of Horrors? What's that plant?
Audrey?
The fly trap. Yeah, but the Venus flytrap. 99 cents, buy this Venus flytrap. And like the kid is cutting out the coupon or whatever. Then you go through the movie Creepshow and it's got its little vignettes. And then at the end, this animated short ends with the kid luring the bullies they're chasing him on their bikes. And he lures them in where these big, giant Venus flytraps come out and eat the bullies, it's a total parallel to this scene, which came before Creepshow. So I don't know if it's a direct steal or just it's a trope, but watching this going, oh gosh, that's Creepshow too. And the little vignette of the kid buying the Venus flytraps. I thought that was really...
That is cool. It reminds me of if I watch another movie like Labyrinth that I've never seen, is it just going to remind me of a bunch of other movies?
Yeah.
Probably.
How repetitive were they?
Yeah.
So that the little gnome wife and the Empress and possibly the Sphinx statues. This is my list of female characters in the movie.
Well, the mom.
And the Empress.
The mom is not a character in this movie.
She is at the end.
The wife, the Empress, and the Sphinx statues.
That's true.
Yeah. It's
well, Atreyu makes a really good lesbian.
Also true.
I mean, the hair is great. The hair in this movie is phenomenal.
Another reason why Bastian was bullied, I had a haircut like him when I was little.
A bowl
I was
cut
trying
like
to find
that?
You had the bowl cut?
Show it to you. I did. Oh, it was bad time for haircuts too.
Well, Bastian didn't have a mom, so who's cutting his hair? Himself?
Yeah, with the bowl.
Yep.
So Atreyu was Boxy on Battlestar Galactica, and the Empress dude in the white robe was Shaft, and the snail racer guy was Deep Roy, who's been in a bunch of things, but I kind of only know him from that weird Johnny Depp Oompa Loompa movie. Were there any other like stars that stood out to you guys?
Just
Like,
Major
hey,
Dad.
it's that guy. Oh, and Major Dad, of course. Yeah.
I didn't know any of them, so it was like kind of refreshing.
Okay.
It probably would have ruined it for me if I'd recognized them.
What's amazing about that is if you ever do go back and watch these Battlestar Galactica, Boxy's the worst character. Just the annoying kid that like, why is this kid in this stupid show? Like, there does not need to be a child on the Battlestar Galactica. Nobody cares about this annoying kid and his stupid robot teddy bear. Get out of here. And then he becomes Atreyu and everybody's like, this kid is the coolest kid ever. He's amazing.
That's a good arc for him. That probably did good for his career.
Kind of. I don't think he really did anything after Neverending Story.
I don't think so. I think he went back and did like Battlestar Galactica 1989 or some dumb thing where he was an awkward teenager riding a jet bike around New York with bad green screen. So,
I mean,
not the springboard. So
ironically, none of the leads, all three of the child leads, if you count the Empress, none of them really had a career after this.
I looked up the Empress and her IMDb has tons of things that she was in.
It's not...
Nothing I've seen.
Yes.
And IMDb for the little boy Bastian is still black and white of his headshot from that show.
Yeah, like this was it for him.
Yeah.
Good for him. He got out.
I mean,
He might have done Neverending Story 2 or 3. I've never seen them.
Neverending Story 2 is the worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It was an incredible disappointment to the time. I wanted to leave the theater. I remember being like 12. I was there with my dad and my uncle, and I'm like, this sucks. Can we get out of here and go get some ice cream or something? Because this is unwatchable.
This makes my popcorn taste bad.
The movie is so bad, it's making me want to throw my popcorn on the floor and step on it.
what? Because I read a little bit about the first movie is the first part of the book. So I wonder if the second movie is the second part of the book.
I believe so. And the third movie is just a money grab. I don't know, but they're not good.
I didn't even know there was a third one.
Yeah.
This is the third movie is a original plot completely away from the book. And the only movie that Jim Henson worked on. He didn't do the first two.
Really?
The puppets were German. And they were Henson-esque.
They were definitely
they copied the
Henson-esque.
technology, yes.
Especially the Falcor. I would have sworn Falcor would have been a Jim Henson thing. Yeah, you know what that's similar to is Wizard of Oz. Like, we all know the Wizard of Oz movie, and it's like, okay, cool, that's a magical world. But aren't there like 9 books or something in the Wizard of Oz thing? And there's all kinds of, like, it goes into all the lands of the fantasy world, and there's clockwork people and other Tin Man people and these kinds of trolls and things. Yeah.
You need to watch Return to Oz if we're talking about it, because that's the better of the Wizard of Oz movies.
That's the Michael Jackson one?
No, Return to Oz is the one where I talked about the headless, my villain, Princess Mamba that could take her.
Oh, yeah. Which one's the Michael Jackson one?
It's just an alternate Wizard of Oz. It's the same story of Wizard of Oz, but done with, it's the Wiz. Yeah.
The Wiz, that's right.
Yeah. It's the Wizard of Oz story again, but told in a different context.
Vished up.
Yeah.
So that, like, rebooting and retelling the same story. Apparently, the rights to Neverending Story were sold, and there's going to be a reboot. It was announced last year.
A remake or a reboot?
They said reboot. I couldn't find any current news, but it was a 2024 announcement.
I think that would be a travesty. I think this movie, I mean, I guess it could be made. You can think of all the CGI and things and advancements in technology for some of the stuff. They would clearly not handle the Artax's death the same way. I think the bully scenes made now would be lighter and not as heavy for him. But I guess it remains to be seen how current movie theaters would. Yeah, I don't know.
CGI Falcor, CGI Gamork.
Instead of puppets, yeah. I don't know.
Although the Gamork puppet on this watch, like, why are they moving that thing's face around so much? Like,
yeah, it's kind of weird.
Like, wolves don't have their nose in every articulate part of their face constantly gyrating all the time while they're standing there. Like,
it was definitely scarier when we were younger. You know what? I didn't remember that Gamork almost got Atreyu in the Swamps of Sadness. I had forgotten completely about that scene, that he was that close to getting him.
Yeah, it's real quick, too. It's like, oh, we did this awful shot of Atreyu getting carried off by Falcor, and then, like, the wolf goes by the screen real fast. But it was cool to see the footprints in the sand. I didn't remember the footprints in the sand either, but that was super cool. Like, Gamork's coming.
Okay, let's talk about the characters. We've talked about them a little bit, or a lot. But
we talked about Bastian, and we talked about his problems. Now, Bastian doesn't necessarily, I don't know, what do you think? Does Bastian make, like, a full hero's journey? Like, at the end, is Bastian the hero? Because like you could say, well, he found his courage and he shouted his mother's name out of the window, but like, really? And then he turned the tables and he bullied the bullies. But like, has he really solved anything? Has Bastian really come around?
Well, I think the most poignant line in this is what the Empress tells him at the end when he's, one grain of sand is all that is remains of my empire, or whatever she says. She says it has to hurt if it's to heal. And I think his hero's journey is coming to terms with his mother's death.
Yes.
And being able to let go. And the revenge on the bullies is just kind of like a bonus. Actually, it made me think, because she also says to him, in order to bring him, she's talking to Atreyu, in order to bring him here, we had to let him in on your story. And there are others who are following him, which is us as the viewers.
Right.
And then I thought, when we record our podcast, we're bringing others with us too. It's the Neverending Story. But that was the whole point, is human hope, right? And his hero's journey is his own healing.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That was a grief story if I've ever seen one.
For sure.
Which I think what they do wrong in this film is masking his mother's name. Why? I don't understand the choice behind that. It is an unusual name. It's like Moonstar or something like that, right? Moonshadow?
They never say it.
You have to look it up. It's in the book.
Oh,
and
it might be in the book. I think the movie made an intentional choice for him to shout 2 syllables of nonsense so that kids could be like, that's my mom's name.
I don't know that they thought about it that deep, because this watch, I used my fancy, giant AirPods Max, and it allowed me to enhance the dialogue. You can hear him say Moonshadow, Moonstar, whatever it is.
Really? Because I had the subtitles on mine, and it just said yelling.
Inaudible. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought that was a weird choice, because the book is very forward with this name. And he even says she has such a fantastic name, or he has a line or something like that. I thought that was a weird choice. But him shouting out his mom's name to save this fantasy land is that healing moment, right?
I think I had heard that the name before, because like you said, it is in the book, and I knew it was something like Moonstar, Moonstone, or whatever, because like it was a hippie 70s mom. But I have always stood by the fact that it was inaudible because kids were supposed to be able to fill in the blank with what that name was.
When I watched it as a kid, that's not what my impression was. It was just annoying. I was frustrated. Like, why can't we know his mom's name? It definitely, like, from my childhood feet, was not how it resounded to me. But you may be right. That could be 100% the thought. But I don't know that they thought about it that deeply.
Speaking of annoying, did you notice that not once, but twice, Bastian hits you with a, that's impossible, just like Luke Skywalker in Star Wars?
It sounds just like whiny Luke Skywalker in Star Wars.
I was like, oh my gosh, like that tone of voice, that's impossible, like lives in my brain. Like I want to hear them both right next to each other and be like, is this Mark Hamill? Is this that kid from, what you call it?
Chicken or egg?
Interesting.
Oh, the other thing that bothers me is he's got his poorly made peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and he takes a single bite of it the entire day, and he's like, no, there's still a long way to go. Not too much. And he puts down his sandwich with one bite out of it, and then the next thing we see, he eats an apple like 10 hours later.
Well, that's the thing, is time is passing because you can't read a book that fast.
It's
Maybe
only
Joan
one night,
can.
though. It's only one night that he's away.
Joan would have read a book in a school day into the night.
She would have way more than a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, though.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, like I feel like it goes from like probably 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. sort of time frame. So
somewhere around
there,
we
just don't see him eating the rest of the thing. But yes, that is a very cheesy line because, well, Atreyu's on a long journey and I'm on a long journey through this book.
But they break bread together, right? Atreyu and Artax are eating while Bastian takes a single bite of his poorly made PB&J that he couldn't even open the peanut butter jar.
Maybe there's more that got cut out to that because the sandwich was a little awkward. It was a little misplaced.
I think so. It's a weird line. No, not too much. There's still a long way to go. And it's like, well, you're reading a book, bro.
But they're connected. That's how you know he's connecting with the story. Foreshadowing is a hallmark of all great fiction.
He's starving himself. That's why he keep my feet up. Like, what?
That's what his dad told him.
No, but come on. It's so bad.
Okay, look.
I heard you were drawing horses. They're unicorns, Dad. What the hell's a unicorn?
His feet on the ground is a solid grounding technique that one in mental health would use or tell others to use. Also, yelling out the window, primal scream. We all did it during COVID. I don't know if you did it. I tell people to scream all the time. There were some solid coping skills.
Wait, so have I underestimated Major Dad? Are they actually in family therapy and Major Dad is telling him, like reminding him the things that the therapist has told him? Hey, remember what we talked about. You got to keep your feet on the ground and the work has to
Therapy
keep
wasn't a
getting
thing
done.
in 1984.
Was not a thing, but if being back, right? I think that was the emotionless, detached, classic 80s parent.
Okay.
Yeah.
Seeing it now.
Or the one who really wasn't a parent, right? If we think about what we know about family tropes at the time is that dads weren't very involved in the raising of the kids. So when the mom passed away, the dads didn't know what to do. He doesn't know to make the poor kid a peanut butter and jelly sandwich
No,
for
he
lunch.
makes his own self a salmonella shake and doesn't
And then
make
he
anything
leaves.
for the kid.
Yeah, the feet on the ground thing was to bring that back at the end didn't make sense to me. And I remember as a kid thinking, like, he's got to keep his feet on the ground, like, because the storm, he can't go up to the window.
No, it's
Why
a
does he have to-
metaphor for living
Right,
in the real world.
But 6-year-old me couldn't pick up on that adult theme. I didn't understand why he was yelling back to the Empress that he had to keep his feet on the ground. Like, no, you need to yell out the name,
You being a dumb kid doesn't make this movie bad.
Or being a kid, not picking up on adult themes.
I picked up on all the
Dillweed.
adult themes when I was little. I don't know.
Did you?
Maybe I had weird.
You were a therapist from the womb.
I guess.
No, it's because we read a lot of books. Well, you read a lot of books.
I read a lot, but I didn't read this stuff. I was at the 6. I was not reading Stephen King at 6. I do know I saw
but
this
again,
in
I wasn't
the
seeing this
drive-in.
movie till I was 8 or 10, probably.
I saw it in the drive-in. It was like when my dad used to take us in the back of the Volkswagen van for a double header where the first movie would be like a kid's movie and then we'd all fall asleep and it'd be like Nightmare on Elm Street or something.
Right.
So,
except
I
you
also
didn't
would-
fall asleep. You were awake
No,
in the
I was
back. and
definitely
peeking
watching
over the
Nightmare on
thing,
Elm
getting
Street.
freaked out by. Yeah.
I love horror movies. Come on. All right. Anything else that we want to talk about? Neverending Story. Dr. Joan, you want to close us out? Like this was.
Well, what else you got on your notes, Joan?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
The quote I wrote down, I obviously need to read the book because I think the author wrote a lot more quotable things. But the main one that comes from out of that to me is because people who have no hope are easier to control, and whoever has the control has the power. So then
Absolutely.
nothing can take over. You can get dragged down. There is a theme of hope and inner healing in this that I think that's what I connected to in this. And surprisingly, I wouldn't watch it if it were on TV randomly, but I'm not angry that we watched it. And I was very reluctant at first to have this centered around me watching it, but pleasantly pleased.
I'm so glad. And I also wrote down the quote, Fantasia is the world of human fantasy. So as long as human fantasy and the dreams and hopes of mankind exist, then Fantasia exists. So I think that's even a strong theme for now, right?
Absolutely.
Like that's not just that's definitely an adult theme, but also one that could resound with kids as well.
Right. I will say like the political statement of, those with the power can control and this and that. Like I was like, yeah, whatever. The planet blew up. This movie is sad.
But then it's brought back to life by the hopes and dreams of mankind and because of Moonshadow.
And whoever gets the book next.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
know. When I was a kid, I'm like, man, that's a sad movie. The world blew up.
Horse died.
The horse died. The world blew up.
But the horse came back because of the dreams of mankind. When he's flying back over and it's the curtain call, everything's back to where it was because
And that's the beauty of the book is when you
Yeah.
read it again, you can go
Yeah.
through the adventure again.
Did you not used to put sand in your hand and walk up to someone and go, 1 grain of sand is all that remains? I used to say all that is left of Fantasia, but that was my kid mind remembering what the line actually
Never
is.
have I ever.
I used to do that all the time.
Fantasia is the name of a strip club in Portland, I'm pretty sure. So it weirded me out listening to it the whole time.
What if it's
I think we need a field
never-ending
trip.
story themed
It's not.
inside?
What if there's someone in a Falcor costume on a
There's
strip?
like 4 murals on the wall. Like, when he goes to the place at the end and there's the murals of the adventures in the strip club?
Amazing. What happens next?
Sphinx wings! They got the Sphinx wings!
Oh my gosh.
Well, you'll have to let us know, Dr. John.
I'm not going there, but I will consider watching the second movie if ever it were around. I'm not paying for it just to prove that it might be better than you think.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do
Helpful.
it. It's super, super bad. I would much rather watch Dark Crystal, right? A Jim Henson movie that you guys haven't seen with all the, I would love to watch that one with
Bits
you.
and pieces. I've seen bits and pieces. Labyrinth, Dark Crystal, those I've seen enough of it to know it, but not. I don't remember any time I've sat down from front to back and watched the whole thing in order. This one I know I have a bunch. I just hadn't done it in a long time. All right. Any other closing thoughts? Neverending Story.
Like you said, I'm really glad that Joe liked it because that's one of my favorite things is sharing the nerdy things that I love with people and having them love it too.
And hopefully to our listeners who were traumatized by the swamps of sadness, remember, it has to hurt if it is to heal.
Yeah.
And hopefully the last 41 years since this movie came out, you have found peace in knowing that in rereading the Neverending Story, that is never ending, Artax is alive and well.
I would kill Artax myself if I could have hair like Atreyu.
That's a bold statement.
That's the Faustian bargain I would make.
Also, why didn't Atreyu sink? Because he was sad the horse was dying.
Because he has the amulet that protects him and guides him.
Because he had the high ground. Gosh, Felcor. All right, Neverending Story now behind us. That means there are other nerdy things. So other than watching the Neverending Story, what's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
The nerdiest thing that I have done this week is diving into my Hoopla app, and I'm double checking it because they might have screwed it up. Nope, it's still here on at least my Hoopla. I don't know if everybody else is because I don't know how it works with the library deals or whatever. One of the big headers they have up at the top is 2025 Eisner nominees. Now, the Eisner Awards are the big comic book awards. And so they've got all of the 2025 Eisner nominees on a page for you to take and grab. So I went through the, 25 whatever books. I think I grabbed 19 of them to read. I've read Batman Dark Age. Really interesting take on Batman. It starts with old Bruce Wayne. It's year 2030, and it's old Bruce Wayne in the Wayne home for old people. And he's having all of these memory troubles and working with the staff there. And so he's kind of remembering the way things were in his Batman career. And it's very different than the tropes and stories that we're used to as far as like the death of his parents, for instance. In this version, his mom had anxiety and depression and was at and would take visits to Arkham Asylum to get help. And that's why Arkham Asylum is something that Batman never destroys or goes away with or whatever, because he has this familial thing. And then eventually the parents do die and all this stuff. But the Robin story is a little bit different. The villains are a little more cheesy and weird the way anyway, it's a really cool alternate Batman story about that. I read Ultimate Spider-Man. What's it called?
I've heard that one's really good.
Not the original one from 2000 that we've talked about before. This
one that just came out, right?
Yeah, the one that just came out.
I've heard it's really good.
It's absolutely really good, and it's called Married with Children. Is the title. If you're looking for the right one, it's called Married with Children, and it is also kind of this alternate tale where Peter Parker's going through his life, whatever. There's been some epic tragedy where a bunch of people died, and it was all Tony Stark's fault, but we don't really know why or what that is. Peter Parker is not Spider-Man. He's married to Mary Jane Watson. They have 2 kids. He's going through his life, whatever. Wilson Fisk is there though, and he's being a bully and stuff. And then he gets this old communication from Tony Stark. And it's oh my God, everybody hates Tony Stark. He killed hundreds of thousands of people with his stupid arc reactor or whatever. Why is he contacting me? You are not living the life that you were supposed to live. We screwed up the timeline. If you're ready to be who you were meant to be, open this box. And he opens the box and there's a spider inside that comes and bites him. And so now Peter Parker, 30-something-year-old dude with wife and kids, is now discovering how to be Spider-Man. And of course, his adorable little daughter sees him right away, Daddy, are you a superhero? And it's awesome. So it's another cool story. I read Plastic Man No More. It's take Plastic Man from the DC universe, absolutely goofy comic relief character, and put him in this absolutely dark hospice story about repairing his relationship with his son before he dies and all this stuff. It's like nothing you've ever seen. And they do all this crazy stuff with the art where like when it's him alone, the art is like dark and gritty and gross. And then when he goes to like Justice League headquarters, it looks like a chibi cartoon because it's all like shiny and fake there. It's so good. And so now I'm on to like the Zatanna one. It's going to be the summer of awesome comic reading for me. I'm going to read all these Eisner Award nominees. So that's what I've been nerding out about.
That is awesome. On Hoopla. You go to Hoopla and you can read all the Eisner. Nice. Good stuff. What about you, Dr. Intern Joan, besides watching the Neverending Story for the first time?
The first time.
What's the nerdiest thing you did this week?
I rearranged and moved my office into what is now my cozy hobby room, which is kind of what the internet calls it. This is my version of the nerd room, but I have all my library over here. I have my Kindle reader and my little book notation little basket over there when I read. And then I have all my hobbies lined up on a shelf that I can pull out and pop up in a table and have a puzzle or do whatever I want in here. This whole entire room is mine.
What was it before?
It was the guest room, so no more guests at the Pugh household. Nobody can come over.
No one's allowed.
They have to sleep on the floor in the living
Ever
room.
again.
Yeah.
That's the attitude. The idea that you would have to waste a room for your house in case somebody you don't even want there could spend the night. Forget it. It's all about the nerd room.
It is about the nerd room. So the only thing we have to figure out is my lighting, because as you can tell, this is therapy lighting. This is how I do therapy in kind of a dimmed room for podcast. I would rather have it look like Analese's lighting. We're figuring that out up above.
Where is the window?
Have your neon
in the
sign?
room?
Okay, this house used to be an adult foster home, so they had to do a bunch of adjustments to make it safe. There used to be a bigger window in here, but now there's a window over here, but it's like this wide.
So people can't escape.
Yeah. You can tell where the other window used to be. It used to be bigger.
Gotcha.
So it has to be artificial light.
Is your neon sign hung up yet?
Yeah, it's right there
Okay, cool.
on the wall.
Oh, I see it now. Yeah, I see it now. Okay.
You see it?
In
Let me do it live.
my nerd room,
See.
I replaced... Oh, wait. Let me see your neon sign.
And
I can't see it.
whoa,
Look at that!
the space of the wall makes it like super cool versus your last room. It was like right behind you and it like washed you out. It doesn't do that anymore. That's cool.
Changes
I know.
color,
I
but it
want
blinks
one
weird, so it's distracting.
with our
Video,
logo. And it's on a remote. Look at that. That's
I know now it won't turn off. Oh, because I'm pressing on.
so cool.
The other
In my nerd
wanna
room,
add-
I replaced the light fixtures with like these like adjustable spotlight LEDs because I wanted it very bright in here for all my like painting and little miniature building. So like I have two, it's going to be all like that where it just plugs right into the regular light thing that was there, but it's got all those little spotlights on it that
And then you can move
aim
them.
and
Yeah.
stuff. And I've got one on this
See,
side
that's
too.
good. Right centered by the closet on the roof is a boob light, but what the light
Yeah.
over there is not going to do me any good over here. So
Right.
Things
so
are
you
weird.
can point them. That's what I had too. I had two boob lights in this room. Put them down, put the spotlights in, and then they're all like one's
You
on
mean
like
you had-
directly on the 3D printer so I can see it. One's directly over the painting thing. One's over there on when you open the cupboard, it shines in and that kind of stuff.
You had the oracles in your nerd room?
I had Oracle lighting. Sorry.
Good
yeah,
stuff.
so that's what I did all last weekend, and I haven't put my Funko Pops up on my shelf yet. It's kind of the last thing.
Right on. I have a couple of things that I did this week. One, I finally primed my goblin army and glued them to the bases so that I can paint them. It had been such a long time since I primed. I made a big mistake and forgot to put black layer of primer on first, but I'm going to work around it. It'll be fine.
Just spray it again.
I'm going to do a different order of slap chop and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
I have like a month before the Great
No, like 6
Goblin
weeks or
Angle
something.
Bargle. So
The Great Goblin Angle Bargle. I need to talk to you about the timing and scheduling of that again
we can do
at some
that.
point. Anyway.
Yes. So I primed my minis, which is good, and then I glued them to the bases. Another thing I did is I've had a lot of people tell me the Netflix show You is something that I would enjoy. I've had a lot of people say like, oh, if you like Dexter, you'd really like this, and he's a serial killer, and blah, 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 blah. I hated it. First 2 episodes. This dude is just disgusting. He's a psychopath and obsessed. And I mean, Dexter's also a murderer and he's no hero, but as the anti-hero, at least his poor dad was trying to teach him to do something good of the world using his
Keep his feet
serial
on the ground.
killerness. What's
Keep
that?
his feet on the ground.
His feet were on the ground because his dad processed his trauma and built a relationship with him and said, look, son, where I failed as a cop, you can succeed as a serial killer by going after these guys who break the system and get away with their crimes. You can punish them instead. You know, none of it's good, obviously. They're serial killers. You're not supposed to like them. They're not heroes. But I don't know, 2 episodes, and there's nothing redeemable about this dude that makes me interested to watch another 6 seasons of him.
I'll watch Penn Badgley do anything.
I mean, the actor's cool. He's doing a good job, but like I don't know. I'm not into it. We'll see if I try episode 3, but
also a book. Maybe you would like the book better.
Possibly.
Maybe you'd like the book better.
Possibly. I will note that. I also just want to say that I kind of geeked out this week because Never Flinch came out, and I started to put 2 and 2 together. It's like some sort of Stephen King something going on in the air right now with pop culture. He's all over the place, and I'm happy about it as a big fan, but I just want to real quick note, this is what's coming up in the near future that is all based off of Stephen King. The Life of Chuck comes out in like a week from now, or like when this episode airs, which is a movie based off of one of his novellas. Welcome to Derry is being released very soon. It's a prequel to it. Now, granted, it's not his work, but it's based off of his work and it has his blessing. So it's about the town of Derry around the time Pennywise first appears and tells the story over the decades, because that's all alluded to and described in the very long novel It. Derry's also brought up in other novels and part of his universe. The Running Man is being remade. A new adaptation comes out in November.
Is Arnold Schwarzenegger going to be in it?
I don't think so. I actually don't know. It's being made right now.
I bet he is.
And we'll see. Well, yeah, I would be surprised if there isn't some sort of cameo, at least. The Institute is a book that came out a handful of years ago, which was really good. And they're making that into a novel. I've read that into a film. Thank you.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. I love that book.
Institute was a really good book. They're remaking Carrie again, which I don't necessarily agree with. Like, I think they nailed it with Sissy Spacek. I don't think they need to keep retelling the story. I think it gets more and more ridiculous the more times they remake it. A novel called Hansel and Gretel is coming out in September, which is unusual. He's been publishing every May, right? The publishers, it's either September or May for the big novelists. He's been just about every May for the past 10 years. Now he has one coming out in September that's based off of Hansel and Gretel. Apparently, someone just bought the rights to Fairy Tale, which, Rob, I think you would really like this book. It's a newer book, and it is high fantasy based about this dude who finds a portal into another world, a fantasy world. The Long Walk is coming out. All of that. Christine is rumored to be remade. Obviously, The Monkey came out a handful of months ago. Pet Sematary is supposedly being remade. Mr. Harrigan's Phone is on Netflix right now. So is A Good Marriage. So is 1902. There is so much Stephen King right now, and I'm super excited about it, but it's almost overwhelmed.
You got to wait until all those rumors like settle in and like what is actually going to be real versus not.
And then, of course, we have the Buffy reboot. But so I was nerding out over all of that this week about realizing all this stuff that's landing, and I'm going to be going to the movies a lot, I guess.
Including our next episode, we got to watch Superman.
Well, yeah, we're going to be watching Superman for our next episode.
No, what? Already?
No, wait.
I thought Buffy...
Oh, no, we do have one in between.
Buffy Con was our next.
All right, so here's what's coming up next for our nerds. Thanks for bringing that up, Dr. Intern Joan. In between our summer episodes, we are flashing back and doing some nostalgia. So last week, we did episode 47, Stephen King Multiverse, since it's right around now, since I just went on that rant. And then after this episode, we are going to re-release our Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode from season 1. That will come out the week we are at Hellmouth Con and doing our live episode there. Not streaming live, but it will be live in front of actual people. And then we're going to have our summer nerd games. We're going to do some trivia. And this one, we are very likely to stream live for our Patreon. So patreon.com/nerdbestfriends. We're going to be doing some nerd trivia and see who wins. Then the HellmouthCon episode will be after that. We record it, but then, we have to edit and all that stuff. We don't do the Superman movie until the first weekend in July. So about a month from now, we'll all see Superman, and then we're going to jump on and do our first reaction. So a lot of good stuff going on this summer.
An exciting time.
It is. I will see Life of Chuck next. Life of Chuck comes out like in a week. I will see Life of Chuck, and then 2 weeks later, go see Superman. Okay, that is our upcoming schedule, nerds. Make sure you jump on patreon.com/nerdbestfriends. Find us on Nerd Best Friends. Write us, email us, podcast@nerdbestfriends.com. Find us on social medias. @NerdBestFriends is our handle, with the exception of Blue Sky, which is, Rob, remind me again?
Nerd Best Friends Podcast.
Or is it NBF Podcast?
NBF Podcast.
NBF Podcast.
Not in charge. Who's in charge here?
Not me. New feature. I could be verified and trusted.
Is
okay.
Anyone in charge here?
Best Friends. Yes, on Blue Sky, we are NBF Podcast.
Beautiful. All right. Find us on social media. Stay nerdy. We'll see you next episode. Go ahead.
We're talking about the boobies, right? The statue boobies?
That was not traumatizing for you.
No,
Shut
it
up.
was not.